fun little side quest today. The museum has been offered another aircraft donation down in, well, it's another trade down in Texas this time. So I am getting ready with one of our other volunteers to take the museum's aircraft retrieval truck and drive down to Texas to pick up an airplane project. That said, the trailer lights aren't working. Let's figure that out. So right now it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm pre-tripping the truck and trailer, and then we're gonna go ahead and drive all the way over to Texas to trade a link trainer for a really cool airplane project. So in July of last year, 2024, the WAAAM elected to send 2 of their one-of-a-kind biplanes from Hood River, Oregon out to Oshkosh, Wisconsin to display at AirVenture. While there, we were parked in the training command portion of the Warbird section alongside a UC-78 Bobcat, an advanced multi-engine trainer from World War II that had been flown up from Sweetwater, Texas, where it lives at the National WASP World War II Museum on Avenger Field, the original training base of the WASPs. While we were there, the chief pilot of the WASP Museum got to talking with Jacqueline, our director of restoration and maintenance, about an aircraft project that had been donated to their museum that was in dire need of restoration. The aircraft in question, November 496 Whiskey, was a 1931 Curtiss-Wright 12Q. One of only 26 built, the aircraft was originally delivered with a what is now very rare Wright-built Gypsy inline 4-cylinder engine. As far as I can find, there's only 3 surviving examples of the Curtiss-Wright 12Q, and the only airworthy one I know of is this example at the Kelch Aviation Museum in Brodhead, Wisconsin. In 1949, the aircraft had been extensively modified, receiving an aluminized fuselage, the process of putting an aluminum skin over what would have originally been a fabric-covered airplane, as well as the original Wright Gypsy engine was removed and replaced with a Lycoming Flat 4. Additionally, 2 wings had been damaged, needing extensive repairs. Because of this, the cost of restoration would be prohibitively expensive for a museum like the WASP Museum, as they don't have their own in-house restoration shop. So a deal was struck, and on a cold, rainy morning in March, my co-volunteer Jim and myself departed Hood River, Oregon, and drove 37 hours to Sweetwater, Texas, to go trade a link trainer, which is an analog and mechanical full motion flight simulator designed in the 1930s and used to teach military pilots all over the world how to fly in instrument and nighttime conditions. Upon delivering the link trainer to the WASP Museum, we then drove 45 minutes east out to Abilene, Texas, where we went to go load up our new to us Curtiss-Wright 12Q. There's a couple of big reasons why our museum is really excited about this airplane. First, we like collecting the rare and the unusual, and one of 3 surviving examples certainly makes this a rare airplane. Additionally, while cleaning our storage hangar a couple years ago and cataloging our inventory of parts and projects, we found on a shelf in the back of our storage hangar a Wright-built Gypsy inline 4-cylinder engine in need of overhaul, but with no aircraft project that it was assigned to. So the serendipitous opportunity for us to get our hands on a aircraft that originally came from the factory with a Wright Gypsy engine was pretty exciting. But more so is the history associated with this particular airplane. Because in 1933, this airplane was purchased by a woman by the name of Jacqueline Cochran. Jacqueline Cochran got her pilot's license in 1932, and in January of 1933 purchased 496 Whiskey as her first personally owned airplane. Unfortunately, shortly after buying the airplane, she suffered an engine failure in flight that led to a forced landing off airport. The airplane sustained damage to both lower wings and part of the fuselage, and after having the airplane repaired, Jacqueline sold the airplane and continued on with her flying career. She became an air racing pilot in the 1930s, and in 1939 proposed the idea to General Hap Arnold of having women pilots fly as ferry pilots for the United States military in order to free up male pilots for combat roles overseas. The idea was initially rejected, and in 1941, Jacqueline and 27 other women traveled to England to fly with the ATA, the Air Transport Auxiliary. And in 1942, the United States Army Air Corps invited Jacqueline to come back to the U.S. in order to be one of the directors of the WAASP program, which ran from 1943 through 1944, in which time a little over 1,000 women flew as WAASP pilots in almost every aircraft type in the U.S. arsenal at that time. They ferried everything from training aircraft to fighters to transports to bombers. Everything from the Stearman and the T-6, the P-51 and the P-38, through the DC-3, B-17, and B-29. They flew a combined 60 million air miles in only 2 years, before being disbanded in December of 1944, rather unceremoniously as civilian contractors. Fortunately, in 1978, the United States military retroactively granted veteran status to the WAASP pilots who had flown in World War II. Jacqueline Cochran, in the meantime, had continued to be a major proponent of women in military aviation, and was one of the reasons that NASA even had a test training program in the 1960s for women astronauts. Jacqueline briefly owned her very own P-51 race plane known as Thunderbird, an airplane that's recently been restored and making the air show circuits once again. She additionally went on to become the first woman to fly faster than the speed of sound, setting so many speed, altitude, and distance records that at the time of her death in 1980, Jacqueline Cochran held more aviation records than any other pilot, man or woman, before or since. Obviously, the opportunity for our museum to get our hands on such a special airplane that was a part of the story of one of the most accomplished pilots of the 20th century is reason enough for us to be excited about this airplane. But upon getting it back to Hood River, we found that some of our volunteers in the restoration shop had been taught to fly by WAASP pilots. And so the excitement for this airplane has rapidly moved it up the priority list in our restoration queue, and the aircraft is already in our shop and work has begun. So far, the fabric has been stripped off the wings, and repairs have been started on replacing both broken spars as well as repairing and replacing the damaged ribs. Now, after leaving Abilene, Texas, Jim and myself didn't come directly back to Oregon, as we had a second aircraft to go pick up in Lebanon, Tennessee. But that is going to be a story for another video. So, I'm going to sign off here for this video, and I will see you all in the next one.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, don't like that, please. Thank you. Hello. Who are you?
Check this out. The super cool things people have in their backyards. That is just awesome.